In the year 2347, the hum of interstellar traffic encircled Earth. Hundreds of ships traveled in and out each day, bearing diplomats, goods, and hopeful settlers. After centuries of expansion, humanity had scattered across dozens of star systems, forging trade routes and alliances with alien species. Yet, beneath the hum of commerce and politics, an eerie shift was brewing. It began one quiet morning with a signal so faint that it was nearly drowned out by cosmic background noise. Deep within Earth's orbital research station, the antennas swiveled of their own accord, drawn by an inexplicable force. Commands from technicians bounced back, but the instruments ignored them. No one had ever seen the station's hardware behave so erratically. Astronomers scrambled for answers, suspecting a power surge or a glitch in the software, but further diagnostics brought more questions. There was nothing apparently wrong with their systems. The anomaly was external. Then, at precisely 3:32 UTC, the signal surged. A single spike of energy flooded every receiver. The staff froze once the data was decoded. It was a repeating series of patterns that no one had ever encountered before. A dispatch went out to the governments on Earth and the colonies. The immediate guess was that these transmissions came from an intelligent source, yet no known species in the intergalactic community admitted responsibility. Humanity's allies, the Thornax and the Vaynari, denied having such advanced communication methods, so the speculation grew. Could it be from uncharted territories? Could there be a civilization more powerful than anyone had realized? Or, more unsettling still, might it be a signal left behind by an ancient race? As the days passed, thousands of scientists joined a global effort to decipher the pattern. It didn't match any language, but there was a resonance that tugged at the minds of those analyzing it. Researchers began describing unexplainable feelings, heightened awareness, sudden stabs of intuition, and vivid dreams. Some complained of headaches or hearing faint echoes of whispered voices. Yet no matter which lab processed the signal, these phenomena repeated time and again. Dr. Tamsin Rowe, a neuroscientist at the Institute for Advanced Cognition, was the first to notice that something was happening to people's brain waves. She had been studying the peculiar mental changes in her lab assistants. Recordings of their neural activity spiked along previously dormant pathways, as if a new area of the brain were coming online. One morning, her research partner inadvertently caused every computer in the lab to power cycle just by clenching his fists in frustration, an event no one could explain. It was shrugged off as coincidence, but small anomalies in daily life piled up. Coffee mugs trembled. Doors seemed to lock or unlock on their own when staff members approached. Reports of levitating pens in the cafeteria circulated as outlandish rumors, yet more than one witness claimed it was true. Events at the Institute soon leaked to the press. Within weeks, the media was flooded with stories of unexplained powers, telekinesis, telepathy, tens of thousands experiencing bursts of impossible phenomena when exposed to the signal. Some dismiss it all as mass hysteria, but attempts to block the broadcast had no effect. Even if jamming satellites blocked one frequency, the signal reappeared at another, pulsing gently in the cosmic background. The threshold levels of what some called psychic capacities continued to rise regardless of the authorities' efforts. A wave of anxiety spread across human worlds. Economic and political systems, structured on well-established hierarchies, suddenly faced an unpredictable future. At every level of society, from the slums of Earth to the glittering towers of the outer colonies, individuals began exhibiting strange talents. Gathering storms of confusion and fear threatened to paralyze governments. The question on everyone's lips was, who was behind this? Historically, new powers often led to upheaval, and this event felt as though it could topple civilizations if left unchecked. To doubt the unstoppable wave was pointless, for it was no mere phenomenon limited to a small subset. Even those who never displayed telekinetic feats reported new mental clarity or heightened empathy. In remote mining outposts on Mars, laborers found themselves resisting exhaustion with preternatural endurance. On distant colony ships traveling at subluminal speeds, blasts of new insight guided them to correct minor hull weaknesses before disastrous ruptures occurred. It was as though the entire human species was on the cusp of spontaneous evolution, triggered by the cosmic broadcast. As the weeks rolled on, the magnitude of these changes escalated. Phases of confusion gave way to acceptance, but acceptance gave way to urgent questions of how to control nascent abilities. Altercations broke out on colony worlds where unscrupulous individuals used telepathy to commit theft. Some manipulated local politics, planting illusions or fears in the minds of opponents. Security robots designed to restrain criminals found themselves easily disabled by mental assaults. Police forces in major cities summoned every specialist they could find to train in defensive protocols, adopting newly devised psi-shields for law enforcement helmets, hoping to prevent infiltration of their minds. On Earth, the United Interstellar Council convened an emergency session. Representatives of allied species craned antennae and perked up ears in puzzlement at the rapid transformation sweeping humanity. The Thornax, a serpentine race skilled in biotechnology, declared that this new broadcast threatened the delicate power balance. The Venari, insectoid merchants famed for their trading empire, openly worried that their business routes might be jeopardized if human telepathy gave them unfair negotiation advantages. Tensions rose as some alien leaders insisted that the source of the transmission be determined and silenced. Yet scientists argued that the signal had become so ubiquitous that destroying it could risk tearing open the tapestry of space-time. It was not a simple matter of flicking an off switch or blowing up a distant satellite. The cosmos itself seemed the transmitter, echoing it across subspace layers. As unrest simmered, an expedition was launched to the fringes of known space, where the signal's presence was rumored to be strongest. It was led by Dr. Rowe and a small team of empowered individuals, now referred to in whispers as the Gifted. They had honed their abilities to a level that allowed them rudimentary telepathic links and limited telekinetic feats. Their mission was to follow the energy threads to whatever source or artifact might lie beyond the charted sectors. Many in the council placed their hope in the expedition's success. Others feared that discovering the full truth could unleash an even larger catastrophe. The vessel used by the Gifted was the Horizon Seeker, a cutting-edge starship capable of navigating subspace anomalies. Days became weeks, and the signal steadily grew louder to their attuned senses. Passengers on board were plagued by half-formed visions, swirling shapes in the darkness, an alien city suspended amid shimmering clouds, cryptic messages urging them onward. The illusions were both terrifying and mesmerizing. Some travelers fell into trances, muttering about a powerful presence calling them from a hidden corner of the galaxy. Others claimed to feel the pulse of the cosmos itself, as though they had become living beacons receiving and redirecting unimaginable energy. Eventually, the Horizon Seeker reached a region where starlight dimmed as if veiled by a cosmic curtain. Instruments encountered swirling gravitational eddies whose logic defied known physics. Charting a path through the anomalies, the crew discovered a structure adrift in the void, a massive ring of obsidian-like material that coiled like a serpent biting its tail. Its surface shimmered with violet fractal designs that seemed alive, shifting in response to the ship's presence. This was the source of the signal, or at least something connected to it. Energized by gripping excitement and dread, the crew prepared for an away team mission. As they entered the ring through a breach in its outer shell, the air inside was breathable, though faint with a metallic tang. Passages wound in geometrically improbable angles. Doors parted and reformed like living membranes. Team members soon discovered luminescent glyphs etched into the walls, exuding gentle pulses that resonated with their own heightened senses. It felt like walking through a dream. Dr. Rowe noted that her telepathic range grew with every step, picking up flickers of consciousness surrounding them. Something was here, or had been long ago. At the center of the structure lay a chamber formed by concentric balconies, each ring descending toward a central dais. Atop that dais hovered an orb of pulsating light, crowned by swirling filaments of energy that reached skyward. Stepping closer, the gifted felt an overwhelming sensation of collective memory. It was as if thousands of voices, perhaps millions, coursed through the orb. Some ancient intelligence had crafted an engine of psychic amplification. There was sorrow in those voices, but also a hope that transcended any known language. In one sudden flash, the orb bathed them in a wave of illumination that swept away everything else. They saw glimpses of alien civilizations scattered throughout the galaxy, each discovering hidden potentials in their biology. They saw conflicts, fear, and ultimately a choice, harnessing this new power for unity or for destruction. The ring, they realized, was a relic from an ancient, forgotten race long past. It was designed as a beacon to guide younger species towards an evolution of mind, an evolution that might save them from themselves or plunge them into chaos, depending on how they used it. Reeling from these revelations, Dr. Rowe and her team returned to the ship, minds ablaze with new understanding. The signal was not a tool of conquest by some malevolent force. It was a gift from a civilization that saw potential in the galaxy's future. Yet the ring itself was only part of the apparatus. Its energies had already permeated human space, and the transformations were irreversible. The question was, what next? Bringing word back to Earth, the gifted found a galaxy on the brink. A wave of chaotic events had erupted. Sabotage, territory disputes, mass awakenings. Rival factions leveraged psychic might to tilt the scales of commerce and warfare. In one shocking incident, an entire fleet of pirate vessels overrode the mines of station security on Titan, looting entire vaults before vanishing. On the other hand, humanitarian efforts had skyrocketed, aided by healers who discovered remarkable powers to soothe pain and mend injuries. New frameworks of diplomacy needed to be established. The centuries-old system of treaties and alliances suddenly felt antiquated in a reality where psychic persuasion could unravel any agreement in seconds. At this critical juncture, Dr. Rowe addressed the United Interstellar Council. Flanked by human ambassadors and representatives from allied species, she recounted the ring's purpose and the revelations gleaned from the orb. She insisted that the only way to contain the impending upheaval was to embrace it through careful cooperation, regulation, and education. The gifted were neither gods nor demons. They were simply people who had tapped into a higher dimension of existence. Rowe stressed that if left to chaos, the newly awakened abilities would tear societies apart, but if guided responsibly, they could usher in a golden age. Initially, there were protests. The Venari delegates demanded that humanity cease all engagement with the signal. The Thornax threatened to close their borders if humans continued to develop mind-based powers without oversight. Some in the human government demanded that those exhibiting greater powers be quarantined for fear they would form a ruling class of telepathic elites. But cooler heads prevailed once a few alien delegates admitted that their own populations were beginning to exhibit similar transformations. It was not a human-exclusive event. It was becoming a galactic phenomenon. Whatever the ring had triggered was no longer confined to one species. In carefully mediated sessions, the Council drafted what would become known as the Concord of Minds. It established guidelines for psychic practice, ethical codes, and protective measures to ensure that no single race or group wielded unchecked power. To enforce these provisions, a new body was founded, the Sentience Institute. A coalition of psychically capable individuals from every species. Their mission was regulating the emergent abilities, researching safe applications, and preventing abuses that could spark full-scale wars. In the months following the Concord, tensions still ran high. Isolated outbreaks of psychic conflicts continued on the fringes. Rogue telekinetics, calling themselves the Free Dominion, claimed all governments were oppressive relics unfit to guide the next phase of evolution. They bombed an outpost on a remote colony, forcibly awakening the population to lethal degrees of exposure. The result was a site full of terrified survivors, brains overwhelmed by sensory input they couldn't handle. The Sentience Institute dispatched its first field team, combining advanced technology with hone-forged mental disciplines to contain and heal the situation. Witnessing both the horrors and the promise of these newfound gifts, societies across the galaxy began to adapt. Schools integrated mental exercises into their curricula, teaching the next generation to harness small telepathic signals responsibly. Diplomatic summits introduced mental sanctums, carefully shielded spaces that enabled secure negotiation. Engineers tinkered with new starship interfaces that responded to directed thoughts. Medical breakthroughs abounded, using mental imaging to diagnose diseases more accurately than ever before. Even daily life was transformed, as illusions turned into an art form, and certain tasks that once required heavy machinery were accomplished with a focused mind and a steady will. Throughout it all, the memory of the ring and the orb's messages lingered. Evolution was not meant to be stifled, but guided. Although many feared the changes, the underlying sense of unity slowly expanded. Humanity and its allies discovered a deeper kinship, for they now shared the trials and triumphs of an entire consciousness awakening. No single species or empire could claim it alone. Even the most stubborn cynics began to wonder whether, with this power, the galaxy might overcome the tragedies of war and exploitation that had plagued it for millennia. Dr. Rowe and her fellow explorers often found their thoughts drifting back to that silent chamber, the orb's brilliant tapestry of voices beckoning them forward. They remembered the swirl of cosmic potential they had felt. In private moments, Rowe confided to her closest colleagues that she suspected the ring was only the first step, a stepping stone, left by a race whose mastery of mind far exceeded anything the present had seen. Other artifacts might slumber out there in the darkness, waiting for the time when the newly awakened species were ready to wield them responsibly. Time stretched on, and the concord of minds took firm root. The galaxy remained fragile, caught between its old instincts of domination and its new frontiers for cooperation. But in every corner of known space, individuals discovered that the intangible threads of psychic connection could forge a sense of empathy beyond cultural and physical barriers. A once divided universe of separate species, suspicious alliances, and cutthroat politics found a glimmer of transformation. Even the ships in Earth's orbit seemed to reflect this shift. Where once they merely ferried goods and dignitaries, they now housed small gatherings of gifted teachers, traveling between planets to instruct novices in mental discipline. They exchanged not just technology and trade goods, but knowledge of the deeper self. The Terran ambassadors, once overshadowed by more established alien powers, found themselves leading a profound conversation on how to balance old laws with new capability. Gradually, grudges faded, replaced by a sense of cautious hope. Still, old rivalries didn't vanish overnight. The seeds of potential conflict persisted, especially among those who felt threatened by this new horizon. Plans were laid in secret corners of the galaxy to exploit or oppress the gifted. Many remained suspicious of the undiscovered depths of these powers, worrying they could be twisted to destroy entire worlds. Yet, every crisis, every uprising, found opposition in a growing coalition of beings awakened to their collective responsibility. The Free Dominion found themselves outnumbered and outmaneuvered by those who embraced empathy and unity as the true path. And though battles flared, they were contained by defenders who recognized that the greatest warfare was waged in the mind, where cruelty could be neutralized by compassion's unyielding persistence. In time, the ring on the galactic frontier became a symbol. Driven by the revelations, an interstellar expedition was sanctioned to study it without disturbing its ancient workings. Part museum, part temple, part research station. Pilgrims from many worlds arrived to stand at the dais and feel the swirling energies whispering the echoes of metamorphosis. Some left, convinced they had glimpsed a reality where the boundaries between species no longer mattered. Others bowed in reverence, mindful of the immensity of the legacy left behind by an unknown progenitor race. By the 10th anniversary of the conquered, the galaxy was irrevocably changed. Children born after the signal's arrival carried a new spark in their eyes. Entire branches of science had evolved to explore the psychic dimension. More than a few new technologies had blossomed, from merging mental craftsmanship with conventional engineering. While danger still lurked, the universe now possessed a tool for bridging gaps once deemed insurmountable. For every dark mind that tried to corrupt it, there were 100 more who believed in forging a shared destiny. Though no one could predict precisely what would happen next, a quiet optimism resonated through the star lanes. Perhaps this was the next chapter in the cosmic tapestry. Billions of voices, newly awakened, weaving their thoughts into a collective future. The ancient ring's purpose was fulfilled. The gift had been accepted. Guided by knowledge, tempered by compassion, the young civilizations of the galaxy teetered on a precipice of endless possibilities. They understood deeply now that the mind, once asleep, had finally opened its eyes, revealing both the risk of great turmoil and the promise of a more united, enlightened cosmos. Only time would tell which path they would choose and whether they would prove worthy of the inheritance left by mysterious hands so many eons ago.